Hey there. Did you know there's a guy out there who bought a $40 million mansion, never paid a dime of his own money for it, and somehow made money off the deal? And no, it's not some magician or con artist. It's just a rich guy who understands how money actually works. See, when regular folks, like David, want to buy something big, they save up. They cut back on lattes, cancel Netflix, and maybe even sell that old treadmill that's been doubling as a clothes rack since 2019. Eventually, after months or years of sacrifices and spreadsheets, David pulls together enough cash and buys the thing. Cue happy dance. End of story. But when rich people want to buy something, they do this Jedi move called use someone else's money. It's not illegal, it's not even shady, it's just clever. And once you get how it works, it'll kind of ruin you in a good way. Because suddenly, you'll see the financial world for what it is. A giant game of Monopoly where the people with hotels aren't spending cash, they're borrowing it. Let's walk through this with David and Lizzie. David, our regular guy, sees a nice $500,000 house. He saves, works overtime, maybe even dips into his retirement savings. After 5 years, he buys the house outright. Lizzie, meanwhile, is a millionaire. But when she wants a house, she doesn't touch her savings. Instead, she uses leverage. That means she gets a loan, probably at a super low interest rate, and buys the house. Why? Because Lizzie's money is busy. It's not sitting in a savings account making 0.03% interest. It's in investments earning 8, 10, or even 15% returns per year. If Lizzie pulls money out of those investments to buy the house, she loses the returns. Plus, she might trigger capital gains tax. Oof. So instead, she leaves her money where it is and borrows the money she needs against her existing assets. It's like having a golden goose and saying, hey, I'm not going to sell the goose. I'm just going to borrow money using the goose as collateral. Let it keep laying golden eggs and repay the loan with a few of the eggs. Smart? No. Genius. And banks love Lizzie. Why? Because she's safe. She's got millions in assets, steady income from dividends, rents, or businesses, and she's not maxing out credit cards at 26% interest. She gets better loan terms, lower rates, and more flexibility. And here's the kicker: debt isn't taxed. Let me say that again for the folks in the back. It's not considered income, which means people can live ridiculously large lifestyles, buying real estate, jets, yachts, and yes, $40 million mansions, without ever technically earning that money, because they borrowed it. Meanwhile, David's working hard, earning every dollar and paying income tax on all of it. David's money gets taxed before he even touches it. Lizzie's borrowed money? Tax-free. Let's run a mini scenario. David makes $100 a year. He pays around $25 in taxes depending on where he lives and how clever his accountant is. He's left with $75 to live on. Lizzie, she doesn't make $100 in salary. She just borrows it against her investment portfolio. No taxes. Plus, she writes off the loan interest. And yes, that's also legal. This is what rich people mean when they say, don't work for money, make money work for you. Lizzie's money isn't just sitting there. It's in stocks, businesses, real estate, all producing income or growing in value. She uses those assets to get low-interest loans, uses the loans to buy more assets, uses those assets to secure even more loans. And just like that, Lizzie is now wealthy on autopilot. David's working 40 hours a week. Lizzie's working maybe 10 if she feels like it. But wait, it gets deeper. Rich people don't just borrow money and hope for the best. They use a system. Let's say Lizzie owns $10 million in stock. She goes to a private bank and says, hey, I'd like a line of credit. The bank looks at her portfolio and says, sure, how about $3 million at 2.5% interest? Lizzie takes that $3 million. She could buy a house, or get this, she could invest in a rental property that generates $15,000 per month in rent. The rental covers the interest on the loan and still gives her profit every month. Plus, the property appreciates in value, and she gets tax write-offs for depreciation, maintenance, and mortgage interest. Meanwhile, her $10 million in stock is still growing. Lizzie didn't sell anything. She didn't pay capital gains. She just multiplied her wealth using leverage. David, on the other hand, bought a house with cash, which sounds responsible, but now his cash is locked up in the house. It's not earning, it's not compounding, it's just sitting there, waiting for the real estate market to maybe go up in a few years. And if he needs money, he has to sell the house, or refinance, or beg the bank for a HELOC and pray they say yes. Now let's talk about something called asset protection. Rich people don't just use other people's money to build wealth. They use it to protect their wealth. Lizzie didn't buy the rental property in her own name. She bought it through an LLC. That way, if something goes wrong, lawsuit, tenant issues, freak flood, it's the LLC's problem, not hers. Her personal wealth, untouchable. Same with cars, businesses, even planes. All held in separate entities, all protected. David, bless his heart, owns everything in his name. One lawsuit, one accident, and he could lose everything. But not Lizzie. Because Lizzie plays the game. And the game favors people who understand how to use other people's money strategically. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, that's cool for Lizzie, but what about me? I'm not sitting on $10 million in assets. Fair. But here's the good news. You can still use the same principles. Let's say you have $20K saved and want to buy your first rental property. Instead of paying all cash, you put down 20%, use a mortgage for the rest, and let the tenants cover your monthly costs. Boom. Now you own an asset that pays you every month, grows in value over time, and can be used to buy more properties in the future. That's leverage. Or let's say you have a strong investment portfolio. Some brokers let you take a margin loan, basically a low-interest loan backed by your stocks. You can use that for emergencies, big purchases, or more investments, without selling anything or triggering taxes. Just like Lizzie, on a smaller scale. The point isn't to go wild with debt. The point is to understand that debt can be a tool, not just a trap. Rich people don't avoid debt. They manage it. They use it to grow faster, protect smarter, and live freer. It's not about being reckless, it's about being resourceful. And once you start seeing money through that lens, everything changes. You stop thinking like a spender and start thinking like an owner. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, how can I use this? Lizzie doesn't see a building and think, that's expensive. She thinks, could I buy it with borrowed money, rent it out, and make a 10% return while writing off the interest? Rich people see opportunity in everything because they understand the real currency isn't cash, it's access to capital. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful ways the rich play this game. Buy, borrow, die. Sounds dramatic, right? It's not a new Netflix thriller. It's a wealth strategy. Step 1, buy assets. Stocks, businesses, real estate, things that grow in value and generate income. Step 2, borrow against those assets to fund your lifestyle instead of selling them. Step 3, when you die, the assets pass to your heirs. And here's the kicker. They get a step up in basis. That means if Lizzie's $10 million portfolio grew from $1 million over the years, she'd owe massive capital gains taxes if she sold it while alive. But if she dies and passes it on, the value resets. Her heirs inherit it at the full 10 million mark. No capital gains tax owed. It's the ultimate tax loophole, completely legal, and completely out of reach for most people who were never taught how the system works. Meanwhile, David's still saving, spending, and paying tax on every dollar he earns. And he's doing everything right by conventional standards. But right in the conventional world just means good enough to stay afloat. It doesn't build wealth, it maintains survival. Lizzie, she's not just playing a different game, she's playing a different sport. Because once you realize your money can be used to get more money without giving it away, that's when you stop grinding and start scaling. Let's get practical again. There's this myth that you have to be a millionaire to use these strategies. Nope. You can use leverage on a small scale. For example, imagine Kate has $5,000 invested in dividend-paying stocks. After a few years, it's grown to $8,000. Instead of selling those shares to cover a surprise expense, Kate opens a margin loan from her broker at 5% interest. She uses that to cover her short-term need. Meanwhile, her investments keep growing. She repays the loan with her regular income, never touches her stock, and avoids triggering taxes. Is it risky? Sure. But risk can be managed with smart rules. Only borrow a conservative percentage of your assets. Keep cash flow strong enough to make payments. Don't use borrowed money for things that don't grow. And above all, don't borrow to fund lifestyle upgrades that drain your net worth. Lizzie's not financing Gucci shoes. She's financing apartment buildings. Let's go one level deeper. Ever heard of using life insurance to grow wealth? Yeah, not the kind your cousin tried to sell you at Thanksgiving. We're talking permanent life insurance like whole life or indexed universal life, set up by pros for wealthy clients. These policies build cash value over time. That cash value can be borrowed against, tax-free, and used for anything. You don't have to pay taxes on it because, again, it's a loan, not income. The policy itself keeps growing. And when Lizzie dies, the death benefit pays off the loan and still leaves millions to her heirs. It's called infinite banking, and it's basically a rich person's private piggy bank. You can do the same thing with real estate. Buy one rental property, let it appreciate, then refinance it, pull out equity, and use that to buy a second property. Now you've got two cash-producing assets, both growing, both paying down their loans with someone else's rent money. Rinse and repeat. That's how people go from one house to owning a 50-unit apartment complex without ever using extra money. They're just using borrowed money, strategically. Now, we've got to talk about mindset, because none of this works if you're stuck thinking like a paycheck-to-paycheck employee forever. We're trained to fear debt, and for good reason. Bad debt is brutal. Credit card debt at 20% interest? That's financial poison. But good debt? That's financial fuel. It's the kind of debt that buys income-producing assets, comes with low interest, is backed by something valuable, can be paid back with passive cash flow. Rich people aren't afraid of debt. They're afraid of wasting their own money when someone else's will do just fine. Lizzie doesn't walk into the bank and say, "I'd like to buy this with my savings." She says, "I'd like to use your money to make myself more money." And the bank says, "Absolutely, ma'am. Would you like that in wire transfer or check?" Because money moves differently at the top. Here's another trick Lizzie uses: credit stacking. She opens lines of credit from different banks and vendors. She doesn't use them recklessly. She uses them like tools. Maybe she gets 0% interest for 12 months on one, uses it to fund a short-term project, maybe flipping a property or launching a product. She makes a return before the interest kicks in, pays it off, and keeps the profit. It's like using a bridge to cross a river, just long enough to get where she's going, then she's off to the next thing. You don't need $1 million to do that. You just need knowledge, discipline, and good credit. And that's the secret weapon. Access cash. If you have good credit, stable assets, and a smart plan, you can do a lot with borrowed money, more than you can with your own, because your money can stay invested, compounding, growing quietly in the background. That's the Lizzie way. Meanwhile, most people use their money once, spend it, it's gone. Rich people use theirs over and over. They keep their dollars doing push-ups in the background while they use borrowed funds to build. It's not a scam, it's not a loophole. It's just the next level of understanding money. And the craziest part? Most people never get taught this. Not in school, not in jobs, not by their families. So they keep trying to save their way to wealth, while rich people borrow their way to freedom. Different playbooks, different results. So, in conclusion, rich people never use their own money, not because they don't have any, but because they understand leverage is the real flex. They borrow against their assets. They keep their investments growing. They avoid taxes. They buy income instead of stuff. And they protect everything behind layers of entities and strategy. It's not luck. It's not evil. It's literally how the system is designed. And the moment you start thinking like Lizzie, even on a small scale, is the moment you stop chasing money and start controlling it. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.